prije 10 godina.
Hi, it's great to be here. I was banned from the UK for the thought crime of defending animal liberation, for saying that animals are not ours to use, wear, eat, or exploit, and that what is happening to them in this war on life is absolutely indefensible. And because of that, they banned me from the UK for life. It's important to know I have no criminal record or association with the underground. These are merely my thoughts, my words, and when they start banning philosophers, you know you're on a dangerous slope to a police state. The reason why they banned me and the reason why they're putting their own activists in jail is because this movement's becoming very effective. They shut down suppliers, shut down buildings, almost shut down the vivisection industry. But this is one of the most important contributors to the economy today. So you can understand that the state response and the corporation response would be absolute repression.
Jesu li se metode oslobađanja usavršile?
I think the methods of liberating animals have become more effective. That's why we're experiencing repression today, because we have finally learned how to put down our signs and how to really take effective action to stop animals from being murdered, tortured, exploited, and to break into laboratories and take them out if necessary to shut down the contemporary global animal slavery economy. The tactics today are pretty much what they've been for 4 decades now. They're limited to what, on the one hand, I would call pacifism, which is an emphasis on being nonviolent and working in legal, open, and mainstream ways. And the other alternative is what I would call militant direct action, which is often, but not always, illegal, underground, and works to free animals from laboratories by any means necessary. The problem with the pacifist approach is that it limits our tactics. I want to expand our tactics. We don't have enough free range of activity, and we don't need a dogma saying that only these tactics work and only these tactics are allowed. What pacifists say about tactics is false. Historically, it's false. You cannot apply one universal rule to all situations, as if reality is not complicated, and each situation needs to be assessed on its own for what tactics work. So I'm a pluralist. I look at each situation, I say, we should use what tactics work in this case. If it's debate, it's debate. If it's education, it's education. If it's a protest, it's a protest. If we need to go in and take animals out of a cage because no other tactic will work, that's what we ought to do. So my approach is pluralist. We should keep all tactics on the table, not take anything off. Why limit ourselves? They are not.
Raste li svijest aktivista o tome koliko toga pozitivnim donose direktne akcije porobljenim osobama i samom animalističkom pokretu unutar specifičkog okruženja? I bude li se simpatije šire javnosti spram takvih akcija, pogotovo nakon objavljivanja vaše knjige Teroristi ili osloboditelji?
That book came out in 2001, so it's been out for 10 years now. And it was really the first academic treatment of the ALF. And I would say that it accomplished its purposes, which was to educate people, even in our own movement, we need this education of the history, the ethics, the philosophy, and the tactics of the Animal Liberation Front or the Underground Liberation Movement. So I wanted to bring out this whole history, this whole philosophy, and the nature of these tactics and whether they're effective or not. And I started this book, which is an anthology of many essays covering the whole scope of this movement that's been alive for 4 decades now. It emerged in the 1970s. And even though there's much misinformation that still persists, even in our own movement, about the Animal Liberation Movement and the Underground Liberation Movement, I would say that the book has had an impact on educating people so that they understand, at least. They may not agree, but they understand that there is a history, there is a philosophy that in many cases these tactics have worked. And one example I can give of a positive influence of the book is that there is a new movie out called Bold Native, which is about an animal liberation cell that goes on the ground and frees animals. And the director told me that my book was a direct inspiration on the movie, and in fact, it's featured in the movie. You see the main character reading the book often. So it has had an impact, and I'm very glad for that.
Imaju li po vama veću političku težinu oslobodilačke akcije koje se izvode bez maski u pol bijela dana, ponekad čak i pred kamerama, ili ih izjednačavate po važnosti s onima koje su izvedene pod fantomkama, u krilju noći, dakle potpuno anonimno?
Each tactic has its own advantage. I call these tactics closed rescue and open rescue. Closed rescue tactic is when you go in anonymously with a mask, typically at night. You break in laboratories and you destroy equipment that's used to destroy life and you free animals. The advantage of this is that you live to free another night. You continue on indefinitely until you get caught. Most people don't get caught. The other tactic, because some people think that's violent, but they believe that, like Gandhi or King, breaking the law is perfectly ethical, as long as it's not violent. If you believe destroying property or freeing animals from property is violent, well, okay. But the other tactic is open rescue, which is you go in you document what's happening to animals, you take out animals. It's typically in broad daylight or at night, but it's open. You videotape what you're doing, you make a press announcement, you don't hide anonymously under any mask, everyone knows who you are, and you publicize your action. This has been very effective in exposing corporations' exploitation practices on factory farms, typically. But even now, this activity is being criminalized, and people are going to jail for open rescue. So the legal penalties are just about the same for open and closed rescues. I think both tactics are effective. People should work at what level they're comfortable. Again, we should have more tactics, not less tactics. There's no need to choose between one or the other. Let's have them both. They're both effective in their own way.
U svom manifestu za radikalni abolicionizam kažete kako je pokret zagovorništva prava neljudskih životinja na ključnoj raskrsnici, gdje je sada u isto vrijeme da se djeluje ili da se umre. Vidite li neke pomake na bolje ili barem nekakvu mogućnost u bližoj budućnosti da se naprave neki takvi ozbiljni pomaci?
I think we're in a serious crisis today in the 21st century. Absolutely historically unique. Very few people appreciate this. And that is because we are in an era of climate change that has never happened before. It is virtually non-debatable. The world scientists agree in great consensus. And we are in the midst of the 6th great species extinction crisis. That means that we have an emergency condition on the planet right now, an absolute crisis. And we don't have time for debate. We don't have time for timidity. We don't have time for moderation. I think we absolutely need to escalate our tactics, escalate the battle, and do everything that we need to do. We should act like our hair is on fire because the planet is on fire, and too many people are too complacent. They're acting as if this is the 4th century BC. It's the 21st century, and life as we know it is coming to an end on this planet.
Kolike su šanse za uspjeh abolicionista u njihovom naumu oslobođenja životinja, uzevši u obzir da nasuprot njih stoji golema mašinerija mesne i mliječne industrije, ogroman broj starospecista koji ne žele promjenu u svom životnom stilu, te još uz to i vješta korporativna demagogija welfarističkih organizacija koje dodatno mute vodu?
The chances for abolitionism today are increasingly better, but very challenging. I would have to say that we're losing this war and losing it badly. There are signs of progress in the UK, in the US, in Croatia, and elsewhere around the world. We see the movement is growing. The veganism is growing. It's becoming more popular. Unfortunately, what's growing more and what's growing and it's completely dwarfing our progress is the consumption of meat and dairy products, the agribusiness industry, the global meat and dairy and egg corporations. They're growing. Meat consumption is growing. So we are losing that battle, even though we see signs of progress. Ultimately, we are losing ground. The focus has been for many groups on abolishing meat, dairy, and egg consumption. This is certainly the main source of animal exploitation. And we are learning how to become more mainstream and how to become more popular with our message. But again, we are not keeping up with China or India, the world's two most populous nations that are shifting away from a plant-based diet to a meat-based diet. We have nothing to celebrate, nothing to be complacent about. All of our work is ahead of us still.
U svom manifestu žestoko se protivite metodama koje zagovara profesor Gary Francione. Koje su vaše osnovne zamjerke spram njegovog abolicionističkog pristupa pravima životinja i promoviranju veganstva kao jedinog mogućeg moralnog izbora, s obzirom na to da ste i sami abolicionist i vegan, to jest da se, bar pretpostavljam, slažete sa profesorom Garyjem u nekim temeljnim načelima?
Abolitionism is a very effective critique of welfareism, and Francione has advanced the debate to the extent that he has shown very clearly the problems with asking for reforms for bigger cages, and especially now, the campaign that is most disastrous to the movement is for so-called humane meat, or cage-free eggs. This is only increasing exploitation. People are now jumping off the vegetarian and vegan wagon to go straight into eating meat, dairy, and egg products without any guilt, and it's made the situation worse. So it's a very effective critique of that, but there's nothing to replace it with. To be an abolitionist in the Francione sense means to do nothing, to do absolutely nothing creative, constructive, or productive. They don't support closed rescues. They don't support even open rescues. They do no legal campaigns to abolish circuses or something like that. There's no protests. There's no demonstrations. So what tactic is left? Well, what they call vegan education. What is that? Where is that happening? Their vegan education is blogging to the converted and attacking every single person and approach and campaign that is not theirs. So they're utterly divisive and negative. They have nothing to contribute but harm. Whatever positive value there was to Francione is far gone. And if he's not actually on the payroll of the meat, dairy, and egg industry or on the FBI, he ought to be, because he's doing the job for them. He is working to undermine the movement and the effectiveness of very good people. Unfortunately, or rather I should say fortunately, his influence is diminishing. People are starting to see that this is a dead end, like welfareism is a dead end. And there are many ways to be abolitionist that are not Francione. And I've been trying to explore those myself, and there are quite a few other alternative approaches. Very quickly, my approach is social and political, and trying to build veganism and animal liberation into a social movement and not a lifestyle or choice or a form of consumerism, but a social justice movement and ecological movement.
Profesore Best, je li po vama moguće istinsko oslobođenje životinja u političkim uređenjima koja su danas na snazi diljem svijeta? Je li moguće osloboditi porobljene neljudske nacije u državama u kojima vladaju bešćutne korporacije, u kojima je na snazi partitokracija, bilo da se radi o demokratskim ili nedemokratskim uređenjima, s kapitalističkim, komunističkim ili nekim drugim totalitarnim predznakom? Treba li po vama promijeniti cijelo društveno uređenje, uvesti neki oblik anarhizma, mogućnost nekog izravnijeg sudjelovanja u donošenju važnih odluka poput direktne demokracije, ili ste radije za prosvjećeni apsolutizam? Kako bismo uistinu oslobodili životinje, pa naposljetku i same sebe od ovisnosti o njima i njihovom izrabljivanju?
I think it's not possible to have animal liberation within the capitalist society. I think capitalism, the logic of capitalism is twofold. Number one, profit, profit, and profit. It's only about profits. And capitalism exploits animals because it's profitable. It could find veganism perhaps just as profitable, or alternative forms of experimenting to patent new drugs just as profitable. But if that were the case, we have another problem with capitalism, and that is that it's short term. It doesn't think about the long term state of the health. It's about the health of the planet. It's about making money and making money now. And that also means this system is unsustainable. And I think this is the most important point. Capitalism is an unsustainable system that will devour every last resource on this planet and not stop until it does. So we can't have animal liberation if we don't have a planet. We can't have animal liberation if we have an economy. that is unsustainable, and that right now animal slavery is the fuel, the fire for this economy. So instead of talking about animal liberation, I prefer to talk about total liberation, where we need to unite the animal liberation, human liberation, and earth liberation movements. There really is one struggle and one fight, and that is for a sustainable world, a nonviolent world, and for a world where all beings are free and all beings have basic rights never to be used or injured or exploited or killed for another being's purposes or profits.
Hvala vam na gostovanju, profesore Best, i puno uspjeha u radu.
Thank you.
Evo